Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, Masechtas Bava Batra, daf Kuf Chaf Beis. We are going to begin on the bottom of Kuf Chaf Aleph Amud Beis, the second line from the bottom, Iboiluhu. So let me ask a question. Eretz Yisrael Shvatim Iflug Odim Lakar Kaf Gavri Iflug. How was Eretz Yisrael originally divided up? Was it given to the Shvatim? There's 12 Shvatim, so they basically divided up the land evenly. Or is it based, and therefore because of that, some Shvatim may have more or less people in it? Or alternatively, we looked at the totality of all the people that inherited Eretz Yisrael, and it was divided up by person evenly, and therefore some of the land of the Shvatim, if you look at the whole Shevet's land in square footage, would be more because it's based on per capita. So on this, the Rashbam explains, L'shvatim iflig, sheneschalka l'shtei maser chalakim, shavin, 12 equally, v'yachar kach kol shevet shevet mischalka fi anashav, and then it was divided by person, shahar yoytz Mitzrayim. And therefore, because of that, more people, obviously, some people got more land. If you were in a shevet with very few people, since all the land was evenly cut into 12 parts, so therefore, if you came from a small shevet, you had a lot of land. Well, if he boy aretz, even if you want to say it's according to the one who says boy aretz, who entered Eretz Yisrael, markedisle, the karpef gavri, Rashi nashim shehol echad miyotz Mitzrayim Rabbi Yeshaya ovnei aretz Rav Yonasan. So basically, saying, even though we mentioned already a couple in the past few plot, this machlokas, is it divided based on leaving Mitzrayim or those who entered Eretz Yisrael? The reality is this question still stands for either of them. And therefore, do we look at each one separately? And therefore, the last two words of the Rashbam, and therefore, or three, kulam shavin b'chaluka. Therefore, everyone was equal because you just looked at, let's say, 100,000 people. There's obviously more, 600, etc., 1,000. But the idea is that we took the land and divided it into 100, let's say 600,000 parts, and therefore everyone got an even portion. So that is the question. Total equality, right? This is like, everyone gets an equal piece of the pie. So let's see the answer. Kuf Chaf Beis Madal Tashma. The pasuk says Ben Rav Lamat. So we had this pasuk before, which taught us a raya that maybe it was Yoytz Mitzrayim, because those people left Mitzrayim didn't inherit, and therefore it's totally on those who left Mitzrayim. If those people ended up having less children, and some of them had more children, so then those children would end up having different sizes. Over here we're also explaining it, that it must be that it's totally on each shevet, and therefore some people who were part of a smaller shevet ended up getting more land. It says the Rashbam, Kol shevet shevet, ma sheyitin lo hagarel, ben shayim magia lo yichelek meruba kagayin, shevet sheish lo nashim ma'at, there's not so many, ben shayim lo yichelek mu'et, kagayin sheish lo nashim harbe. Let's say you came from a shevet with a lot of people, so you're going to get a small amount of land. Kivan dechol shvatim leichin shavin, all the 12 tribes got an equal amount of square footage by shevet, so therefore shevet katan is shevet gadol. Nimsa chelka b'nei shevet hakatan meruba mechelk shevet b'nei gadol. Ve'ilu karkaf, if you go by the head count, so Gabri, so my ben rav umat will not kulam mishab. Okay. Furthermore, Tanya asin Eretz Yisrael shetischalik l'shloisha shvatim. It says in the future, Eretz Yisrael is going to be divided up not into 12 pieces, but into 13. Shebetchila u'nischalka elu shnei maser shvatim 12 u'nischalka elu b'kesef is only divided up by monetary value. Shneimar ben Rav Lamat. Okay, we'll understand what that means in a second. But the Rashbam says the imishum Levi the naked nachal kashar shvatim hamenashim Ephraim namilu yatul el chelk echad. So the truth is that even though you can say, well, Ephraim and Menashe, the truth is they only got one chelik. We're going to talk about that more on the next daf. But Yud Gimel, so what is the answer? So Rashbam explains that we're talking about Shevet Levi. Vayeshloi or V'hayud Gimel when Nasi could come on. Alternatively, it could be referring to the Nasi, the leader, will get a 13th portion. Okay, we'll see exactly who is this Nasi. We'll get to that soon. It'll eventually be question 7, but let's hold off on reading the question. Amir Yehuda, Sub Yehuda Shava Chamish Sayim Begoil. A son Yehuda is worth 5 in Goil. So, as we know, location. Lo Nischalka El Begoirol. The land was only divided up by a lottery system. Shnemer Ach Begoirol. Lo Nischalka El Beurim Betumim. They actually used the Urim Betumim in this calculation. Shnemer El Pi HaGoirol. So we see clearly it was done. So Hakeitzan, how was it? Was it Urim Betumim or through a lottery? So what happened like this? Hakeitzan Elazar Melovesh Urim Betumim. We know that Elazar was where he was the Kohen Gadol after Aaron, and he wore the Urim Betumim. Yoshua v'chol Yisrael oimdim lafanav. So Yoshua, again, because this is already after Moshe died, and they were dividing up the land after the 7 years of conquering, the 7 years of division. This was how it was done. So what happened was, again, he was wearing the Urim V'Tumim. Yoshua and Kol Yisrael oimdim lafanav v'kal pi shel shvatim. There was a box of names which mention the tribes' names. And the boundaries of Eretz Yisrael were divided up accordingly, north, south, whatever. It was all through Ruach HaKodesh. Remember, Zvulun Oyla Tchum Akai. That Zvulun will get Akai. Oyla Imoi Tarf Bekalfi Shel Shvatim. There'll be Adi Zvulun. So he put his hand into the basket of Shvatim, and in fact, Zvulun came out. So then he pulled out again the name of Akai. So therefore, you see that he basically predicted what was going to end up happening. Remember, Naphtali Oyla. Naphtali is going to be the next name. Utchum Ginaisar, which has great fruits. Oil Emo, so Tarf Bekalfi Shel Shvatim V'Ola B'Yod Naphtali, pulled out his name. Tarf Bekalfi Shel Tchumim V'Yod B'Yod Tchum Ginaisar. So it was Ruach HaKodesh, the Urim V'Tumim, but then it was also through a lottery system, like a double proof. Okay, let's hold off for a second. Let's look at the Rashbam. So B'Ksafim, it said that with monetary value, let's look at this Rashbam. Someone who had a nice portion, he would have to pay a little bit. So if I had a really nice property, we'll see what that means. Nice portion, and yours is a rocky area, it's not as nice. So I have to give you the financial difference. You have to figure out the difference. The Zibayris Karli Ma'at. The inferior land is Zibayris. We'll call that Ma'at. And the Idias, the higher quality land, is called Rav. Okay. So that's the reason why Rabbi Yehuda said Sub Yehuda is worth 5 Sayin Goel, and therefore you have to make this Cheshbon. Okay. So again, when we said Haketza, Rashbam says Im Urim Lama Garel, Vim Garel Lama Urim. Shema Machishin Zedzeh. So the whole Chiddush is that they were not machish one another. They were in line with one another, which just concretized that everything was legitimate. Says the Rashbam, fourth wide line, Ushnei Kalfi HaYisrichin. They needed 2 separate boxes. Echad l'shvatim ve'echad l'tchumim. One was the names of the tribes, and the other one was the locations. L'sagi b'chad. One box wasn't enough. The tchumim, the lema achshava ninaitel ma'ashel b'yadi l'tzarech Ruvain. We didn't say, okay, I'm going to do Ruvain randomly. I'm going to do Ruvain, I'll do Shimon, and then you pull out one location. Nimkein inko hachaluka asui b'garo. And therefore, what will end up happening is not all the divisions will be done through the Garol, which basically, I think what that means in the Rashbam is the last one, there's not going to be a Garol at all. There wouldn't be a Garol either way for the last one. Okay, I'm not really sure exactly what that means. Okay, so the point is that it has to be, none of it can be with Haitzas Dibur. It actually has to be with a Garol, which includes the tribes. That's the idea behind that. Okay, and of course the Rashbam says that this statement we read is Shlok Seder. So this is all by chance. That's the reason why it wasn't mentioned. Reuven will get this, because why is it start talking about Zvulun, Naphtali? They're not anywhere near the first kids in the equation. But that's exactly the point. It's trying to illustrate it was just a random lottery system, and therefore it wasn't the firstborn child's name pulled out. That's the idea behind that. Okay, so now let's keep going. First wide line in the Gemara. This is how they did it for each tribe. The divisions were different. Olam Haza, the original division, Adam Yesh Lo Stay Lavan, Ein Lo Stay Pardes, Stay Pardes, Ein Lo Stay Lavan. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't have everything. If you had an orchard, you didn't have a regular field. If you had a field, you didn't have an orchard. However, Olam Haba, when it comes to the future divisions, you're going to have all different types of lands, whether mountains and plains, etc. Shnemar, Shar Ruvain, in Yecheskel, regarding the gate of Ruvain, Echad, Shar Echad is equal. Shar Yehuda Echad, Shar Levi Echad. Echad here means equal. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Machalik Lehen Ba'atzmai. And not only that, Hashem will divide it up evenly and also by himself. Shnemar Ve'ela Mach L'koisam Nu'um Hashem. It says Nu'um Hashem, which means Hashem himself is going to be involved in the Chalukah. Katani Miyis, what did we learn? It was divided to 12 tribes. Again, Shema Minah, L'Shvatim Iflig Shema Minah. So what reason why we brought this whole down, not to lose sight of what we asked at the beginning of today's class, is that what is the din when it comes to how the division was? So it's clear that it was divided in 12. It wasn't divided into 600,000 parts. It was divided into 12 parts. And then once each Shiva got their part, then they looked at all the people in the Shiva and it was divided among them. Omer Mar. As we said, it's going to divide it up into 13. So Ich, Ida Chaman. So Mavchistel and Nasi. It's going to be given over to the Nasi. Now in this, the Rashbam says, when Nasi is L'melech HaMashiach. It's not just talking about some prince or leader, it's referring to Mashiach, as the Rashbam explains. So, Mashiach's going to get a nice piece of Eretz Yisrael. Rightfully so. Dichsiv, the Oived Ha'ir Yavduhu, Mikol Shifte Yisrael. And the Oived Ha'ir, which is the Nasi, Rashbam says, the Oil Rabbi Mutalov. He's called the Oived Ha'ir. He's someone who's has to work for the whole city, and he's serving for all people. He ends up getting among more than anyone else, basically. Maybe it's referring to the Rungav Ba'alma, just these Stam workers. Rashi says Schirim Ba'alma. People are working, right? That's all it means. So says Rashbam, Beloshin Pras Yoim Vigar Sachir Kaloimer Sachir Yoim. So that's what the word means. So Rungar is a breakup of this Persian word that Yom Vigar Sachir. Then we're talking a gar, like someone who works for the day. So we'll talk about that. So it's very interesting that instead of we're talking about the absolute top position of all humanity, of being Mashiach, it's possible that the same word could represent someone who's just a simple worker. Because the truth is, a simple worker is not so simple. Because they both have the same task of doing a job to provide and make the world a better place, basically. So obviously Mashiach is on a grander scale, but it's not that he's going to sit there in the lap of luxury, but rather he's going to serve for the people, which is the ultimate level of schirus. So he says divided by money, as we saw in the Rashbam, Shnemer being the Rav Lamat. So am I. Doesn't mean it's referring to better valued property. So atu what? B'shuv Tanya Skinan. We're talking about like foolish people, says Rashbam. the mistalki menachaloskam bezuze, that they're going to be satisfied with some cash. Alvadi begolil noitel heisoin keneged sab Yehuda. Right? Obviously, that's what's going to end up happening, because if I'm inferior quality land, so then I should be compensated for it. It's referring to, even if it's the same quality of land, but some of the lands are actually closer to Yerushalayim. And as we know, anyone who lives in Yerushalayim or in its proximity, it's very expensive. The Kroiv says at Rashbam, Hakarkois hayu chalkim shava. They're divided evenly. Someone who takes from the weaker Nota Yoser Ad Kadmei Yafa. That we know. Let's say someone lives very close to Yerushalayim, then it's going to be more, and he has to pay the difference living close to Yerushalayim than far. Living far away is not as good, for two reasons. And if you have the opportunity to go to the Beis HaMikdash, what a great opportunity that is. Also because it's close to the other nations, and there's reason to fear. So if you're living by the northern border, by Lebanon or next to Gaza, so you have more to fear than if you're living in the old city of Yerushalayim. Okay, so therefore, for that reason, that's how it's divided up. Okay, now let's look at question 7. So either Shevet Levi, as we said, or the Nasi, which, as the Rashbam said, is referring to Mashiach, according to the Rashbam. Okay. All right, let's keep going. Let's go back into the Gemara. So the Gemara says like this. Kitanoi. The truth is the Machlokes Tanai. Rabbi Lezer Omer b'ksafim luha. Rabbi Shua Omer b'karke luha. So again, basically, even though we thought it means that you pay them extra money, but the truth is it may not be money. It could be land. In other words, if you live close in Eretz Yisrael, because it's more expensive to live so close in Yerushalayim, so your square footage is going to be less than if you live in Beersheba, or you live up in the north, in, let's say, Sfat, which is far from Yerushalayim, so you're going to end up getting more square footage. Okay. Weiter. Which obviously, if you're part of the same shevet, that's not a true example, because they had a certain amount of land. But again, in each shevet, there's an advantage of there's certain parts which is closer to Yerushalayim than others, and that's how it's calculated. When it's chalka el begarul, shenemar ach begarul, it has to be with a lottery. Tan ach begarul yatsa Yeshua v'kolev. So it's coming to exclude Yeshua and Kolev. So Lamai, what does that mean? So maybe they didn't get any land at all. No, Hashda the Lav did who, Shakil did who, my boy. We already mentioned previously that they were able to take the portions of the 10 Meraglim, who obviously died and didn't make it into Israel, so they received their portion. So certainly Yeshua and Kolev should get their own. El Shulanatul Begarul, El Alpi Hashem. It means that they weren't part of the Garul, but they were actually Hashem himself gave them their land. Yeshua Dechsiv, that's not from a Garul. Alpi Hashem Nasnuloi. As Asher Sholes Timnas Serach Bahar Ephraim. And we'll focus on the word Serach at some point as we continue to cook Chaf Beis Amud Beis. Ksiv Serach Uksiv Cheres. So it says Serach in Sefer Yoshua, but in Sefer Shoftim, the Rashbam helps us out. Of course, it's straight from the Torah or as well, Cheres. So which one is it? So Amr Belezer B'tchila Peruseha Kecheres. Originally, beforehand, the fruit was like earthenware. It was almost inedible. Peruseha Masrichen. Then all of a sudden, it became like spoiled. What does that mean? How's that good? Says the Rashbam, Kodim Shabbos Liad Yeshua Peres said Daimon Lecheres, Yavashin, Veroim Kecheres was bad. Osayv Shabbos Yadai later Pereseha Masrichin Meroiv Shamnon, because they were so fatty and so meaty. So therefore, because of that, they were able to spoil. But something which is hard as a rock is not going to spoil necessarily. It's not going to mold. But something which has all these juices and so much liquid inside these fruits, there's obviously could potentially spoil soon. Anyway, so that's what the distinction of the words. You can say it the other way around. So how is that good? So Rashbam says, because they were so fatty and meaty, so therefore they used to spoil, which is not good, obviously. Then later it became like cheres. They weren't too fatty. It was the proper amount. So you can put into your storage house. And it was able to stay for longer periods of time. It was obviously these are perishable items, but it didn't spoil as fast. That he was given Chevron, Kasher Dibra Moshe, like Moshe said, Vayarish Mishom es Shloisha B'nei Ha'anak. And he inherited from the 3 B'nei Anak, Chevron. So in saying Chevron, Ir Miklat Havoy. I don't understand that. Chevron, how could you tell me that he inherited Chevron? Chevron was a place where you would run if you killed someone b'shogeg. That's where you would go. That's one of the cities. So Omer Abaye Parvaraha, which means that this is so Rashbam explains Kfarim v'sadeh shesaviv l'ir chutz l'migrash. This is actually, he inherited these beautiful villages and fields all around it. So yeah, Hebron itself was a Ir Mikla. However, he inherited all the stuff around it. So we see it was Alpi Hashem. Okay. Question TA 16. Mi noitel chelak eretz Yisrael shalol begairul. Who inherited it without a girl? A beautiful softball question among some very difficult ones. Of course, it's Yoshua and Kaleb. That's TA 16. TA 16. Shalonatlu begara el alpi Hashem. Okay. TB 17. El chilukim yesh bein nechsei ha'av. Okay, let's continue. It says the next Mishnah. The Masnisin tells us as follows. Echad ben vechad abas. Whether we're talking about a boy or a girl, and the Gemara is going to explain all of this, a son or a daughter, benachla, they get this, apparently the same inheritance, which we know is not true, as we have established before. Ben is Kolam Abbas. Ella, but then it says except, Shaben noitel pishnai b'nechsei av, ve'eno noitel pishnai b'nechsei em. This is also shtickle mada, but it's basically saying that the son will get pishnayim, if he's a bechor, but only paternally from his father, but not from his mother's estate. Okay, that we'll have to understand. But banais nizonis b'nechsei av, ve'eno nizonis b'nechsei em. When it comes to the daughters, in the event, let's say, there is nechasim muatim, and there's v'lo habanim, so what's happening if there's not a lot of money? If there's a lot of money, so then the girls will definitely get mazonas, but the boys will also get something. But in this case, where there's nechasim muatim, so the girls are compensated first, but it only comes from their father, and they're not getting mazonos from their mother's estate. It says the Rashbam, it doesn't matter. The boys will be yersh everything from their mother, but when it comes to their father, when he dies, his Yerusha's given, of course, to the boys, but the daughters get mazonos, which is a substantial amount, which is like 10% of the estate. Says the Gemara. My echad ben echad bas. What does it mean they're equal? That they inherit equally. Hatzanan ben kodem bas. Kol yetzi reichel shel ben kodem bas. We know that that's just not the case. So how do we understand this? So simin nafsham. So this mnemonic can remind us of these answers. Whether it's a son or a daughter, they're able to get even something in which is like accounts receivable, monies that will be coming even though it hasn't come yet. So hanami tanina, we already know this. That they got 3 chalakim. Chelik avihen, they received the portion of their father, because he left Mitzrayim. And the chelik with the brother, ben nechse chefer. Va'oid my ella. How do you understand any of this? This is a shtickle play playim. How do you read this? Says the Rashbam, Haylul Lishana Lishna Specifa Chiluk Da'av Aim El Chiluk Bain Ben Labas. Okay. Elam Rapapa Hachikarmer Echad Ben Echad Abbas Noitan Chiluk Bebchayra. Each one can get a portion of the Bechor. So Hanami Tanina. Again, with regard to B'no Slavchad, first of all, we know that B'no Slavchad do get a Yerusha, even though it's Roy Kibamuchsik, they do get that which is coming to them. It's not by the din of Pishnayim, not, but regular, yes, that we already know. And also, again, in B'makam Shein Ben, we also learn when it comes to this that there's a din of getting a portion for the Bechor. If your father didn't get a Chalukah yet, didn't get a division, but he was a Bechor. That's Lavchad, he gets 2. And it's not an issue of, as we saw a couple of times already, apparently you shouldn't get Roy Kibamuchsik when it comes to this, but Eretz Yisrael is Muchzekas already. Which is interesting because it wasn't divided, but it was considered like it's already theirs. It's like guaranteed like money already, if you will. Oid Mael. How do you read the rest of this, the top of the Mishnah? El Omer Avashi Hachikamer. Echad Bain Habanim, whether you have one son, as you choose one son, Vechad Bas Bain Habanoi, so you choose one daughter, Im Oimer, if you decide to choose one of your sons, or one of, let's say you don't have any sons, you only have daughters, and you say like this, Yirash Konachasai, I want you to be Yarish everything, so Davar Kayaman, which is an incredible Chiddush. So you can have this living will of basically uprooting the basic dinim of Yerusha. Come on, Rav Yochanan ben Broka. So that's like him. Hakatani lo come on, Rav Yochanan ben Broka Imer. Im Amar Al Misha Royal Yarish Davar Kayaman. Al Misha En Royal Yarish En Davar Kayaman. It only works if it's someone who's fit to be Yarish. Says Rashbam, Hayelu Bar Yerushahu b'mixus. As long as you have some ability to be inheriting some of it halachically, then he has the right to do this. So therefore, this should work. Says Rashbam, V'loy acher ben abanim. Then yochel asois yarish. Umasnehu al mashakasa b'tayra. V'ad sheyitin l'b'losha matana lo kani. So you could always give it as a gift, as a matana, but since you use the language of Yirash, it has to be someone who's fit to have any element of Yerusha. V'chi tema hastam like Rabbi Yochanan ben Brochus is like him. So stam yachach machloikasi, stam yachach machloikas and ochach stam. So how does that help? The halach is not like him anyway. But ma'el, how do you read the beginnings? Elohim Rav Ashi hachikamer. Echavim and echad bas shovim next aim. It just means sons and daughters equal when it comes to the possessions of the mother's estate. As well as the father's estate. It just means that the son takes pishnayim from the father, but not from the mother. In other words, basically they are considered to be equal. That's all. And they're equal, obviously, in the event where there's no sons, and the daughters are equal in the same halachic matters, but the only difference is that when it comes to only a son inherits nechse av, but not nechse ha'im. So, and the daughters rather do not get nechse ha'im. So again, let me say that's true also, but that let me just read the words of the Gemara, that when it comes to the dinim of Bechor, it's only the father. The first, so it's totally on the father. So if the father dies, the Bechor gets Pishnayim. he gets a double portion. Not when the mother dies. That Yerusha does not go to as a pishnaim, as a double portion to the son. It's only the nechse ha'av. Okay, we're going to stop there, and that'll be it. Question number 8. What's the difference between the father and the mother with regard to this? So ben noitel pishnaim b'nechse avo nechse aim. So again, as we said, that the son gets a double portion from the father's, right? The son gets a pishnaim if he's a bechor from the father, but he won't get a double portion for the mother. And second of all, Habasi says Menese Avo and Mechse Aim. When it comes to getting Mazonos, it's only from the chasim of the father. Okay, nothing on TA. Question TB17. Elu chilukim be Nechse Avo Nechse Aim, which of course is the exact same question we just saw. Let's see what I wrote. Mishnah. Hadin Bechor Rak Min ha'av v'lo min ha'em. Okay, bechor means pishnayim. Le'inyan mezainis rak lebas v'lo leben, which again is leben lo. The daughter, only the daughter gets, and not the son. But it's also again the in mezainis min nechse ha'em. Ad kan.